I knew this was going to be a hard topic for Jeff, but I also knew it was necessary to go there. Jeff talks about the death of his wife Laura and the path he felt compelled to take next. Somewhere in here, and I may have the timing wrong, and forgive me if I'm going to touch on a subject that's pretty tough, but can you talk about your wife Laura? It was around this time, I think, you were on the board. I'm not sure where Grail falls in on this. She was your partner in life, but tragedy happened and it seemed to change your life dramatically.
Yes, it did. So sometimes the universe conspires in good ways and sometimes in less good ways. Shortly after I had joined the board of Illumina, my wife Laura, as you mentioned, was diagnosed with very late stage cancer. Laura was 45 years old, was super healthy, super fit, ate right, exercised, did all of the things you're supposed to do to a far greater extent than I did. Had no family history of cancer, material history whatsoever, and then started having initially some vague symptoms. It was kind of wintertime, December, January. She was feeling more tired than usual, which was very unusual for her. Went in as part of her annual physical exam and shared that with the doctor, and in the medical realm, they joke that they look for horses, not zebras. So the doctor's initial assessment was, oh, it's wintertime, kind of seasonal issues, and you're a woman in your mid-40s, so probably early stages of menopause. So take 2 aspirin and call me next month. And she started then having, a while later, some additional symptoms, some stiffness in her joints and hips, and then started having some GI issues, which was also unusual. So went back for another round of checking, and they ultimately decided, it might be something like mild Crohn's disease or irritable bowel syndrome. So they decided to do a kind of exploratory endoscopy and colonoscopy to see if there could be any issues there. And it was during that process, and this whole from initial symptoms to ultimately diagnosis was a multi-month process. But when they finally did that procedure...
Why so long?
It's the way the medical system works.
Wow.
It's not looking for the exception cases. The statistical probability of a woman her age having it is relatively low, probably 1 in 1,000 or something like that. Material, but unusual. And they're not looking for the unusual cases. They're looking for horses, not zebras, and certainly not unicorns.
So if they had detected this earlier, would it have been a different outcome?
So it ultimately proved to be very fast-moving and very aggressive. So if it had been detected at the very beginning, it may have been better, but that ultimately then leads to Grail. So I was on the board of Illumina just as Laura was diagnosed, and ultimately what we hope might be a positive prognosis was quickly demonstrated not to be the case. So the colonoscopy identified a small colon tumor, kind of 2 centimeters. So the initial feedback was this could be the positive case of catching it early. The prognosis for early detected colon cancer is quite good with surgical intervention. But as we did the next stages of workup, it confirmed that it was not at all that situation. It had metastasized and spread extensively to her liver and through her lymph system, and ultimately in treatment metastasized to lung and to bone as well.
I want to touch on the personal side here, less about Grail. Tragedy hits a lot of people, hits us all at some point. How we respond to that is very different. You could have taken a path where you just would withdraw from society for a while until you get it together. You seem to take a different path. You seem to have immediately wanted to solve the problem. A tragedy happened and you wanted to fix it for other people. You seem to dive into your work. Is that what happened?
It was, and a little bit of Grail and Illumina mixed in this. So while Laura was going through treatment, I was on the board of Illumina, and it's a very technical place, and we were doing R&D, science reviews of new projects that had kicked off. And just in that window, there was a project that had kicked off that ultimately became the core technology of Grail. So in parallel, I was with Laura in her primary kind of caregiver and guide for treatment, and we had access to the best doctors in the world and the best diagnostic capabilities available then. But it really demonstrated to me, unfortunately, the futility of the current cancer treatment model, where incredibly smart people and very dedicated people have been working for a long time, but cancer is a disease of mutation that as it goes further along becomes mutationally more complex and just harder and harder to fight. So in Laura's treatment, it felt like we were constantly behind. And that's unfortunately the dominant case today for cancer discovered at late stage. And in contrast, when I was at Illumina and we were talking about this technology that ultimately became the seed crystal that Grail was built from, it had the potential of detecting cancer early, and that I saw as potential for really shifting the playing field. Instead of detecting late when the odds are against you, if you could detect early, it's a different game, and the odds can be dramatically in your favor. And I saw a technology that, if it had existed, 2 or 3 or 4 years prior, it could have completely changed the situation and outcome for Laura. But ultimately, I decided, as you highlighted, you don't get to choose the things that happen, but you can choose how you respond. So Grail for me became a mission to find purpose from Laura's situation and try to help others avoid that in the future.